Those involved in e-commerce in one way or another refer to product detail pages as the money pages. This seems to imply that many view PDPs as the most important pages for e-commerce. Because of this mindset, often the PDPs do get the most attention at the expense of listing pages such as product or category listing pages. However, listing pages are in fact the hubs for e-commerce websites and can collect and pass the most equity to lower and upper levels in the website hierarchy. Also, link development for e-commerce websites usually focuses on category and subcategory pages, so listing pages deserve more attention. Listing pages display content in a grid or a list. When these pages list products, they are referred to as product listing pages or PLPs. When the pages list categories, subcategories, guides, cities, services, and so on, they are referred to as category landing pages or simply category pages. Listing pages usually display one of the two types of items on e-commerce websites. Products, which are items belonging to the currently viewed category, and subcategories under the currently viewed category or department. Product grids or product lists display thumbnail images for all the items categorized in a certain category or subcategory. This means that all the items listed there share a common parent in the hierarchy. This screenshot shows a traditional product grid. All the items displayed in the main content area belong to the guitars category. The product list approach has the advantage of sending more authority directly to the products in the list, especially to those on the first page of the list. However, these listings can present too many options to users who may have to sift through hundreds or thousands of products, as depicted in this image. Showing the entire list of products belonging to a top-level category will not make sense to users in many cases. Users need guidance in choosing a product, and listing thousands of items is too much and too generic. Let's talk about several recommendations for optimizing product listings. Deploy an SEO-friendly Quick View functionality. Use this feature to provide more content for users and search engines. This functionality is usually implemented with modal windows to quickly provide product summary information without going to the actual product detail page. A click on the Quick Look button brings up the modal window to the right, which can lead to a better shopping experience for users. For example, you can deliver more crawlable content by loading the static product description in the source code, but only displaying it in the browser when Quick View is clicked. Dynamic information such as product availability, available colors, or pricing can be loaded on demand with Ajax. Just as with any other method that displays content to users only at certain browser events, it is wise not to abuse the Quick Look implementation. This means that the content should be super relevant and brief. 50 to 150 words for the product description is probably more than enough. Also, the internal linking should not go overboard. 2 to 5 links in the short product description is enough. Additionally, you may want to consider the number of items you load in the default view, which is the view that gets cached by search engines. If you load 20 products, each with 100-word descriptions, that is 2,000 words of content on that page. If you load 50 products, that is 5,000 words, which may be too much. Create and improve internal algorithms to optimally display items in the list. SEO is about increasing profits from organic traffic by optimizing for users coming from search engines. If a user lands on a category page and the first items in the list or in the grid do not generate profits for you, then you are missing opportunities. You need to design and use an algorithm that assigns a product rank to every item, and you need to organize the products based on this metric. The algorithm doesn't have to be complex. It can take into account a few different metrics, for example, percentage margin, sales statistics, stock availability, proximity to user location, and even hand-picked items. The idea is to put profit-maximizing items first on the list. Most sites have the best-selling or most popular items as the default view in the product list, which is good for usability because most customers will be looking for best sellers. However, that doesn't mean that you should not try to optimize profits by experimenting with your rankings algorithm that displays at the top the products most important to you. Add category-specific content. Adding content to product listings can increase the chances of showing up higher in search results pages. This applies to categories at all levels of the hierarchy. You are probably familiar with the SEO content for category descriptions. Many e-commerce websites have it nowadays, usually at the bottom of the page. In this example, the SEO content is displayed after the product grid to allow items to be displayed above the fold. The SEO influence of this content can be improved by adding links to several internal pages. Do you wonder if this content works for Newegg? They rank number 2 for LCD monitors, just above Best Buy. Of course, other factors helped this page rank second, but that category description will have some influence as well. Remember, SEO is about making small and incremental changes. Some websites prefer to place this type of content above the listing, but this approach does not allow room for much copy, and it will push the listing down the page, as you can see in this screenshot. In this particular case, the category description is not long at all, but the marketing banner pushes the product grid even further down. Maybe an A/B test would clarify whether the banner should be there or not. There's no doubt that more text content can help with SEO. However, adding too much content above the product grid can push the products below the fold, which can in turn confuse users and negatively affect conversion rates. On the other hand, displaying the content below the product grid is not as helpful as having the content at the top of the page. There are a few techniques to address this issue, for example, collapse or expand more content at click or JavaScript carousels. I find SEO-friendly tabbed navigation to be one of the most elegant solutions to fit a lot of content at the top of the page. This approach is good for users and bots, and it can be done within a limited amount of space and without being spammy. A quick note on the content behind tabs and expandable clicks. Previous to mobile-first indexing, such content is considered less important and given less authority. However, this changed when the mobile indexing went live. Let's compare before and after tabbed navigation screenshots. This is how an older category page looked on REI. It displayed some content at the top of the list, but it was not using tabbed navigation. Notice how the content at the top pushes the listing down the page. And this is how the tabbed navigation version looks like. The Shop by Category is the default tab, which is great for users because it lists subcategories. The last tab, Export Advice and Activities, holds a whole lot of SEO value, as you will see in the next slide. This content is not only well-written content, keeping users and conversions in mind, with almost no SEO focus, but it's also great food for search engines. The content focuses on users rather than search engines, which makes it even better. This type of content targets visitors at various buying stages and will move them further into the conversion funnel, which is awesome. It will also increase the category's chances of ranking better in the SERPs. REI could easily add 1 or 2 contextual text links to thematically related subcategories or products to push some SEO equity to them. The lesson here is that whatever content is placed in the tabbed navigation, it should be useful for users and should not be just some boilerplate text. I mentioned it before and I will say it again. E-commerce websites have to become content publishers if they want to succeed in the long run. This is not an SEO strategy, but rather a healthy marketing approach. In addition to the great content wrapped in this tab, REI added even more content at the bottom of the subcategory grid outside the tab navigation. One great implementation of content at the bottom of the listing grid is on the Home Depot's website, as depicted here. They placed buying guides, project guides, and category-related community content, which is great for users, and search engines will fall for it. Just a side note here. It would be interesting to test the effects on conversions if this type of content was moved up in the layout just above the product grid. Creating this kind of content is a win-win tactic because users will get helpful content to assist with their needs and questions, which leads to better conversion rates, and search engines will also love such content, which leads to more organic traffic. Another option for adding more content on category pages is to present a link or a button to more content just above the listing. You can see it exemplified in this screenshot. When users click on the View Guide button, they are taken to a new page. The guide is pretty long and good, but it does not add any content to the listing page itself. So instead of opening the content in a new page, a better SEO option is to open a modal window that contains an excerpt from the guide. Preload the text excerpt in the HTML code so that it is accessible to search engines. This modal window will contain a link to the HTML guide, so users can click on it if they need to read the entire guide. Creating content is time and resource consuming, so you need to identify the top performing or best margin categories to start with, then gradually proceed to others. Another way to optimize product listings is to capitalize on user-generated content, also known as UGC. User-generated content is a highly valuable SEO asset, so let's take a look at two types of UGC that you can implement on listing pages: product reviews and forum posts. Adding relevant product reviews will influence conversion rates and search engine rankings. In this screenshot, you can see how the product reviews section is displayed at the bottom of the product listing page. The reviews in this section should be for the products in the listing. If the listing is paginated, the reviews should be listed on the index page and should not be repeated on paginated pages. If you have enough reviews to populate pages 2 to n of the series, you might be tempted to do so, but this is not a good idea. In such cases, you may want to consider increasing the number of reviews you list on the index page. Instead of listing 3 reviews, increase to 5 or 10. When you do so, you need to create rules to avoid duplicate content issues between listing and product detail pages. Such rules can be: do not display more than 2 reviews for the same product on the same page. Display only 5 reviews on the same listing page. On the listing page, do not display the reviews you displayed on the product page. Community content such as forum posts can be handy not only in the forum section of the website, but on category pages as well. In this screenshot, you can see how in addition to product reviews, relevant forum posts are listed below the category grid. Optimize for better SERP snippets. Product listing pages can get rich snippets in Google search result pages. Sometimes Google displays only the number of items in the listing, other times it displays a few item names as well. While many e-commerce websites are interested in knowing how to get these snippets, Google's official recommendations do not go into much detail. And here is a quote from Google. If a search result consists mostly of a structured list, like a table or series of bullets, we will show a list of 3 relevant rows or items underneath the results in a bulleted format. The snippet will also show an approximate count of the total number of rows or items on the page. For example, 40 plus items, as in this screenshot. However, Google also uses your HTML code to generate rich snippets, which means that it doesn't necessarily need semantic markup such as schema.org. That's why it's important to keep your code clean and well structured. Keep in mind that if your listing pages get rich snippets that include item names, then the SERP snippet for the description will be shorter than the usual ones. Instead of 2 or 3 lines of text, the description snippet may be truncated to just 1 line of text. You may want to check the impact on SERP CTR in such cases. Here are some tips on how to get rich snippets for category listings. Validate the HTML code for your list. If you open a list item element but don't close it properly, or if you nest elements improperly, it will be more difficult for Google to understand the page structure. In this screenshot, you can see how each product in the grid is wrapped in a list item element that's properly closed. Also, notice the div and UL class names. Don't break the HTML tables. The rich snippet will display the number of items on the index page if the product grid contains 40 plus items in a single table, but only if the table markup has no breaks. If something in between items 10 and 11 breaks the table, Google will instead display the message 10 plus items. If you list your products in multiple tables, Google will choose to display the count from only one of them. Use suggestive HTML class names. It's reported that using the class name item in the items div helps with getting rich snippets for category pages. Just to confirm, wrap the few items in div class equals items and the snippet has been updated. Took 4 days to appear in the SERPs. This advice seems to be working, at least to some extent, as you can see in this screenshot. The div that wraps the product grid contains the word products, and this seems to be common among websites that get rich snippets without using semantic markup. Also, the list item class name contains the word item. A large total of items in the list may attract more clicks because large selection is one of the things consumers look at when choosing where to click. This brings us to another optimization idea. Reconsider the number of items in the listing. If the number of products within the currently viewed category is reasonably low and easily skimmable, then load them all on one page. If you think it's necessary to display a low number of items from a user experience perspective, you can load 50 or 100 or 150 items in the source code in an SEO-friendly way and use Ajax to display only 10, 15 or 20 items to avoid information overload. You can then use Ajax to update the page content based on users' requests, such as scroll down, sort, display all, and so on. If you have thousands of products under the same category, consider breaking them into more manageable subcategories. You can list subcategories instead of products after segmenting into smaller chunks. Tag product reviews with structured markup. This is a debatable tactic and you want to pay attention to how you implement it. Search engines don't support product review markup on product listing pages and may consider such markup spam, so be careful. Make sure you don't use the aggregate offer entity in your markup because this will raise spam concerns. The safest entity to use on product listing pages is the offer. To learn more about schema product markup, follow the link at the bottom of the slide. Display category-related searches below the search field. Related searches sections have traditionally been used to link internally to other pages and to flatten the website architecture. Here's a classic example. Related searches are there to help users with discoverability and findability by providing highly related links to other pages on the website. Given this, why not place them closer to where users will perform a search, such as a search field? You can see this in action on Zappos website. The search by links are placed in a prominent place to push authority to the linked pages and to help users. However, on Zappos, the links are the same on every page, and they do not make sense on the bags section of the website. Size, narrow shoes, and wide shoes are not useful requirements for someone looking for bags, right? Instead, you can dynamically change these links to something related to bags, maybe linking to a page that filters bags by style or other attributes that suits the bags category. If you don't want to use too much space to list 10 or more related popular searches, you can implement a modal window that opens at click on popular searches. Make sure its content is available to search engines on page load. You can list as many popular related keywords for each category as you like, as you can see in this screenshot. This image depicts a possible implementation of popular searches using a modal window. As mentioned in the Home Pages section of the course, you can use one of the following sources to identify searches helpful to users. Find the top searches performed on each category page. Identify the products or subcategories most visited after viewing the category page. Get the top referring keywords. Remember, Google and other commercial search engines hide search queries behind the Not Provided label. Another optimization idea is to defer loading of thumbnail images. When you load tens of items in a listing, the chances are that many of them will be below the fold. Loading all thumbnail images at once is neither necessary nor recommended. Load only when the user scrolls down to view more products. While image deferring has not much to do with rankings, it will help improve user experience by decreasing the page load time. Notice the scroll bar at the right and how small the scroll slider is. This tells that the page is very long. The products in the screenshot are several thousand pixels below the fold. A word of caution about the meaning of fold. The fold has a very clear meaning in print. It's the physical fold of the newspaper right in the middle. However, with websites, the meaning of fold is blurry. You will need to define and identify where the fold is for your website, taking into account the browser resolution and the devices used by most of your users. Obviously, the fold will be different on mobile than desktop. Remove or consolidate unnecessary links. Product lists often pose the issue of redundant links. For example, in this screenshot, there's an image link on the product thumbnail image and another link on the product name. Both are pointing to the same URL. There are several ways to address this issue, and we have discussed this before. Please refer to the link position section in the internal linking section. Another issue, very similar to the thumbnail product name redundancy, occurs when you place a link on the reviews stars and the text link displaying the number of reviews for the same product. The image link on the stars and the text link on number 6 point to the same URL. In this particular case, none of the links can provide strong relevance clues to search engines due to the lack of anchor text, so you can keep only one link. I would keep the links on the star images because you can add some more clues using the alt text and because the link area on those star images is larger than the text numbers. The link on the number of reviews could eventually be JavaScripted. Another option is to consolidate links into a single URL. Removing unnecessary links or other page elements can declutter the design, provide white spacing between products, and can reduce the number of links that leak authority to the wrong pages. In this example, it's unnecessary to display the special offers link for each product. Instead, use tooltips or display small icons or stickers to highlight such offers. Another element frequently listed in product lists is the Add to Cart button. I'm not saying that you should remove it without proper analysis, but you can always A/B test to see how it influences conversion rates. What I am suggesting is track Add to Cart events and analyze whether users add to cart directly from product listings. In many cases, those who add directly from product listings are return customers who are very familiar with your brand, with your products, and with your website, and know what they want. If you decide to remove Add to Cart buttons, these users will know that they can add products to their cart from product detail pages. The usefulness of the Add to Cart buttons on product listing pages has to be tested. Make the listing view the default view. Usually, the list view allows more room for product-related content, which is useful for users and search engines. You can see how in the grid view, there's room to feature the product name and price only, while in the list view, you can list more product details. In this example, the list view is the default view for users and search engines, but users have the option to switch to grid view in the interface. At the beginning of this section, I mentioned that there are two types of listings. Until now, we discussed product listings. Now, let's talk about the second type, category listings. Listing categories means that instead of displaying products, you show all the available subcategories that a category contains, each displayed using a representative thumbnail image. Category listings are implemented at the first 2 or 3 levels of a site's category hierarchy, depending on the size of the product catalog. Because the number of subcategories to display is low, most of the time category listing pages use a grid view rather than a list view. Let's look at how Home Depot implemented the subcategories grid in a user and search engine friendly manner. The first level in the hierarchy, Appliances, lists several subcategory thumbnails such as refrigerators, ranges, washers, and so on, as well as subcategory links. For example, under refrigerators, they list links to French door refrigerators, top freezer refrigerators, side-by-side refrigerators, and so on. When you click on refrigerators, a category listing is loading. This time, the listing displays some of the most important subcategories for the refrigerators subcategory. This is the third level in the hierarchy, and it still lists categories instead of products. This encourages users to take a more deliberate selection path before the page displays tens or hundreds of products. Implementing subcategory listings in the first or the first 2 levels of the e-commerce hierarchy has the advantage of sending more PageRank to subcategory pages. That's better than sending more PageRank to just a few products, because your link development efforts should point to category and subcategory pages. It's not economically feasible to target product pages with link building unless you have either a large budget or only a few products in your catalog. Developing external backlinks builds equity for category and subcategory pages, which further flows to PDPs. Implementing the first or the first 2 levels of the e-commerce hierarchy as subcategory also makes for better user experience. Usability tests have shown that users can be encouraged to navigate deeper in the hierarchy and make better scope selections. The choice between product and subcategory listing depends on the particularities of each website. Usually, subcategory listings are a better choice, especially for websites with large inventories. Deciding which subcategories to feature at which level of the hierarchy should be based on business rules. For example, top 5 subcategories with highest margins or top 5 bestsellers. Here are several recommendations on how to build better subcategory listing pages. To send SEO love directly to products, add a list of featured items at the bottom of the listing, as shown in this example. Keep in mind not to list too many products. 5 to 10 items should be enough. keep the left sidebar navigation available to users because that's the spot we have been trained to look for secondary navigation. This navigation pattern actually influences conversions. Also, it's easier to scan and choose from secondary navigation links. The secondary navigation will not contain filters until a user reaches the point where you list products instead of subcategories. Display professional subcategory thumbnails as exemplified here. This reassures users that they are dealing with a serious business. Add a brief description of the category whenever possible, and eventually link to buying guides or interactive product finder tools that may help users decide which product is right for them. This is especially important if your target market is not familiar with the items you sell. A brief description of each category may help first-time buyers understand your terminology and can provide more context for search engines. In this example, the original design didn't include buttons like Find the right fridge, Find the right washer, or Find the right dryer. However, such links can be of great value to users and might help with SEO as well. If searchers click such buttons after landing from a generic search query, for example best appliances, the clicks will help lowering bounce rates and will lead to longer dwell times. Use an SEO-friendly Quick View functionality to add more details about each category. Just as this functionality works on product listings, a similar approach can be implemented for category listings. Note that in this screenshot, I added the More Info button to the original design for illustration purposes. Clicking on More Info will open a modal window. In this window, you can include details such as a brief explanation of the category, what users can expect to find under this category, links to more subsequent categories in the hierarchy, and even FAQs.